Hey there, and welcome to The Explainer. So, you're jumping into the world of React.js, right? And I bet you've already hit that wall of jargon that just feels kind of overwhelming. Well, today, we are taking one of the absolute most foundational concepts in all of React, and we're breaking it down completely. We're talking about props. Consider this explainer your ultimate beginner's guide to actually making your code come alive.
Let's kick things off with a fundamental question. How exactly do we make our apps dynamic? You know, when you first learn to code, everything is just so static. You type a specific word into a file and boom, that exact word just sits there on the screen. But modern apps aren't really like that, are they? They're exciting, they respond to us, and, crucial point here, they definitely don't force developers to write the exact same repetitive code 1,000 times for 1,000 different users. So how do we cross that bridge? How do we go from boring, static text to dynamic, living interfaces in React?
To figure that out, here is what we'll be covering today. First, we'll officially meet React props. Second, we're going to build a welcome component together. Third, we'll connect the data. And finally, we'll unlock the power of reusability.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, Meet React Props. The definition of this concept is honestly wonderfully simple. Props is really just short for properties. In React, props are simply how we pass data from one component to another. That's literally it. If you have two separate pieces of code and one needs to hand some information over to the other, it uses a prop. You can kind of think of props as these little delivery vehicles, moving your data around so your components can actually be dynamic and interactive, instead of just sitting there doing a whole lot of nothing.
Okay, moving right along to Section 2, Building the Welcome Component.
To really see how this works, we need to get our hands dirty and build a simple component. First up, we create a brand new file and name it welcome.jsx. Next, inside that file, we're going to create a function, and we'll just go ahead and call it welcome. And finally, we absolutely cannot forget to use export default along with the component name right at the bottom of the file. This basically just packages up our code so the rest of our application actually has permission to use it. If you're a complete beginner, just know this is the standard skeleton for pretty much everything you're ever going to build in React.
Now, here is the absolutely crucial part. Inside the parentheses of our new welcome function, we're going to pass a parameter called props. As you can see, this props parameter is just a JavaScript object. Now, please don't let the technical terms intimidate you here. Adding props just means we're giving our function a container. We're essentially whispering to our welcome component, hey, be ready, because some data is going to be handed to you soon, and this is the bucket you're going to use to catch it.
All right, let's actually use that bucket. Inside our component, we add a return statement with an h1 heading tag. We write the standard text, welcome, but then right after it, we add a set of curly braces containing props.name. In React, curly braces are like, well, they're kind of like magic portals. They tell your code, hey, stop reading this as plain text and start reading this as JavaScript. So we're basically reaching into our props bucket and we're pulling out a very specific piece of data called name.
Which brings us perfectly to Section 3, Connecting the Data. To actually send that data package, we need to switch over to our main application file, which is usually going to be app.jsx. First step here, we mount our welcome component. That just means we type it out and place it inside our main app so it knows, to actually show up on the screen. Then, step 3 is where the magic really happens. We give it a key name and a value. We're directly injecting the data right at the exact moment we declare the component.
Now get ready, because this is the real aha moment. Compare the static implementation, which is just an empty welcome tag. I mean, it's perfectly fine, but it has no idea who it's supposed to welcome. But look at the dynamic version, a welcome tag with name set to iron coding. We're taking that key, name, and setting its value to the exact text iron coding. Because we set up our props bucket in the welcome component earlier, it successfully catches this exact value.
And when we run our project in the browser, check out exactly what we get on the screen. Welcome, iron coding. Our dynamic message actually came to life. Take a second and think about what just happened here. The word welcome was hard-coded into our component, sure, but the phrase iron coding was passed dynamically through the prop. We didn't have to hard-code the user's name inside the welcome file itself at all. It was securely delivered from the outside.
And that leads us to Section 4, the power of reusability. Let's see how this transforms into an absolute superpower for developers. We can write that exact same welcome component tag 3 times in a row in our app, but just swap out the key values. So we pass iron coding, then we pass Codex Ninja, then maybe we pass beginner. We only ever wrote the underlying welcome code once, but
but we can reuse it infinitely just by feeding it different props. You literally go from repeating yourself endlessly to having this highly scalable, totally dynamic system. It's a real game changer. To sum this whole shebang up, our source material leaves us with this pretty perfect quote. With props, you can easily pass data to components and make your React apps more powerful. And honestly, that is exactly what I want you to take away from this explainer today. This incredibly simple concept, just passing a JavaScript object from file A to file B, is the foundational building block that allows software engineers to build massive, highly complex applications without losing their minds constantly writing repetitive code.
So, I'm going to leave you with a final thought to ponder as we wrap up today. If props can so easily pass a simple name string, what other powerful data could you pass next? Could you pass an entire user profile? What about a live stock price? Or maybe a whole image gallery? The possibilities are literally endless once you get the hang of this flow. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, and I highly encourage you to open up a code editor right now and try throwing some props around yourself.